Hey everyone, Noah Zerby here. This is the first in a series of videos where I'll outline some of the basic critical theories to the study of international relations. This video focuses on what connects critical theories. That is, what makes critical theories critical. In subsequent videos, we'll look at some of the specific critical theories, including constructivist, Marxist, and feminist approaches to IR. So let's get started. So you'll remember that we discussed mainstream theories of international relations last session. You should also remember that I said that the key distinction between mainstream and critical theoretical approaches to international relations centers on the role of theory itself. Mainstream theories like realism and liberalism are primarily positivist in their orientation. That is, they take the world as it is and seek to explain how it works. Realists, exemplified here by the works of Machiavelli, focus on questions of power, anarchy, and conflict. For them, the world is one characterized by conflict, and the overriding concern for states is one of security. Liberals, exemplified here by the work of the United Nations and former Secretary General Kofi Annan, focus on cooperation and the maintenance of international peace. They tend to emphasize issues like trade, development, and the protection of human rights, and collective security as a mechanism to achieve these goals. In both instances, however, the nature of the state and of the international system are taken as historical givens, even while the theoretical approaches differ over precisely what is given. Critical theories, on the other hand, include theoretical schools like Marxism and the various neo-Marxist approaches, feminist IR theory, and post-colonial theories. Unlike mainstream theories of IR, critical theory emphasizes normative claims about how the world ought to be. They question how the world came to be the way it is, and they tend to be concerned with questions of power, inequality, and justice. Critical theories reject the notion that theory is merely descriptive, but instead argue that theory operates in the service of power. This emphasis was perhaps most clearly articulated by Robert Cox, who famously argued that theory is always for someone and for some purpose. Critical theory includes a number of diverse theoretical approaches, and we'll look at some of these this week. These include Marxism and its variants like dependency theory, world systems theory, and neo-Gramscianism, most varieties of feminist approaches to international relations. As we'll learn a little later, feminism can encompass a fairly limited criticism like those rooted in liberal feminism, as well as more radical and intersectional approaches like those of Vandana Shiva, Maria Mies, Carol Cohn, and others. And finally, post-colonialism, which emphasizes the unique experience of the Global South, illustrated here by the work of Amitav Acharya. Now, there's another way to think about these types of theories. In his classic 1981 essay, Social Forces, States, and World Orders, Robert Cox distinguishes between two kinds of theorizing, which he calls problem-solving theory and critical theory. Problem-solving theory, he argues, takes the world as it finds it, with the prevailing social and power relations and the institutions into which they are organized as the given framework for action. The general aim of problem-solving theory is to make these relationships and institutions work smoothly by dealing effectively with particular sources of trouble. Problem-solving theory thus operates within the existing political and economic order, seeking ways to make the system function more smoothly. It serves to reduce variability and fixes issues as they arise. It serves to reify or legitimate the existing social order. Precisely because problem-solving theory operates within the existing social order, it is ahistorical in its focus. It posits that the existing order will continue forever. But this also gives problem-solving theory a focus and consistency. By contrast, Cox argues that critical theory does not take institutions and social power relations for granted, but calls them into question by concerning itself with their origins and how and whether they might be in the process of changing. Critical theory is directed to the social and political complex as a whole rather than to its separate parts. Unlike problem-solving theory, which assumes the existing social order as a historical given, critical theory seeks to problematize the existing order. It raises questions about the social, political, and economic systems that exist. It asks how the system came to be, how it is maintained, and who benefits from it. Critical theory thus questions the very foundations of the existing social order. As a result, it's necessarily historical in its focus and shifting in its foundations. And while Cox's work draws on and in turn provides a foundation for critical theory, he does not reject the utility or the necessity of problem-solving theory. Indeed, for Cox, both serve an important purpose. Problem-solving theory is analytical and practical. It permits the world system to function, resolving contradictions and issues within it as they arise. In doing so, it provides a framework for action. Critical theory frequently offers no such guide, raising questions it often cannot answer. It problematizes everything, leaving us on shifting ground. It questions the very foundation of the social order, but it sometimes has difficulty prescribing specific social action. Where problem-solving theory is narrowly focused and grounded, critical theory is holistic and radical, seeking to understand the root causes and power relations at the heart of the existing social order. And while problem-solving theory might be seen as conservative, critical theory might be seen as utopian. Indeed, as Cox writes, the aim of critical theory are just as practical as those of problem-solving theory, but it approaches practice from a perspective which transcends that of the existing social order. Critical theory allows for normative choice in favor of a social and political order different from the prevailing order, but it limits the arrangement of choice to alternative orders which are feasible transformations of the existing world. So that wraps up the first video. I hope you found it useful. You're now ready to move on to the videos covering the specific theoretical approaches of constructivism, Marxism, and feminism. Good luck!